entering the Mayo Experience.
That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog, the Week 10 rankings by position, half-point PPR plus the Thursday Night Football preview. If you ever just want to jump around and figure everything out or get to the section you want, the time codes are in the show notes, and the cheat sheet with all the rankings, lists, and injury report are updated in the description right now. So if you just want to jump to there, I don't begrudge you. Go sign up for the Mayo Media newsletter, though, so they get sent directly to you, and then you can get the breakdown for everything. It's completely free as well, so just get your name on that email list, sub to the channel, and smash the like. Well, you are here. Cincinnati is at Baltimore. They are 6-point favorites, the Ravens being, and the injuries for the game are vast. T. Higgins, as of this time, is not officially out, but he's not going to play. He is doubtful to play on Thursday Night Football. Isaiah Likely is out on the Baltimore side of the ball. Zach Moss is out for the season for the Cincinnati Bengals with a pretty gruesome neck injury, thus thrusting Chase Brown into that workhorse role that we saw against Vegas last weekend. Additionally, the Bengals did trade for Khalil Herbert. I would expect him to be active, although that is not official as of yet, but how many snaps is he realistically going to play in this game? Even if he gets up to 25% of the snaps in the Cincinnati backfield, that's still going to be beaucoup touches for Chase Brown. So in terms of the actual rankings, fantasy-wise, for the week, I have Jamar Chase at number 1 in the wide receiver rankings right now. Problem is in the games without T. Higgins so far this year, he's averaging fewer than 50 yards per game. We saw him already this year absolutely annihilate the Bengals in that 41-38 game from about a month ago, and this is going to be a game where they have to lean on him. Baltimore pushes the pace so well that they're going to have to throw. So it could be a big Gesicki. It could be a big Yoshivas. Maybe Jermaine Burton gets involved. Maybe Drew Sample ends up doing something. Tanner Hudson ends up doing something, but that's not the way I see it. They're going to have to force feed the ball to Chase Brown and to Jamar Chase. Chase Brown is number 12, in the running back rankings for the week. And on the other side of the ball, Deontay Johnson, I would expect to get more reps this week, but it's clear that it's going to be Mark Andrews, who took a significant bump up inside of the top 10 in the tight end rankings without Isaiah Likely around. I still don't trust Mark Andrews to deliver in a big spot, but this is a great opportunity for him against a pretty weak pass defense. Zay Flowers inside the top 25. He still remains the wide receiver 1, but Lamar's the number 1 QB, and Derrick Henry is inside the top 10 at running back, which leads us to the underdog plays for Thursday Night Football. We've hit 3 of these in a row, so fingers crossed they can pat us for the week so we can go all in on Sunday like last week, which was very, very profitable. If you have not signed up for Underdog yet, go use code MAYO right now. You will not only receive a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit, you also unlock a Lamar Jackson free pick for Thursday Night Football, and you can use that to replace Lamar Jackson on the 6 times your money entry that I am putting in. I do have Lamar Jackson at higher than 1.5 passing touchdowns. I do expect to see a lot of points in this game. Jamar Chase at higher than 81.5 receiving plus rushing yards, and Chase Brown higher than 23.5 receiving yards. I would guess that Khalil Herbert might work his way into third downs, but we did see Chase Brown being utilized in that receiving role against the Raiders last week in a game where realistically they didn't have to pass to the running back at all. He ended up catching a touchdown. I do worry that the Ravens still have one of the top 5 rush defenses in the league coming into the week 10, so the receiving game makes a lot more sense for Chase Brown, especially as 6-point dogs in this game, that they're just going to have to throw and throw and throw, and through attrition, whether it's 3, 4, 5 catches for Chase Brown, that he can get over that 23.5 number. In fact, in case this number has gone up by the time that you're watching it, which I would expect it to do because I would anticipate that a lot of people are going to be on this one, I'd play it up to 27.5 receiving yards. That's where my numbers rate itself out. So the lower you can play that number in terms of the higher, then all of a sudden it's a better play. But I would still play it if it was at 27.5. I doubt it gets up that high, but that's where I'm at. So Lamar, Jamar Chase, and Chase Brown all higher on Underdog for Thursday Night Football. Code Mayo, once again, will get you that Lamar Jackson free pick, which you can just scrape Lamar off, my entry, throw on that free pick, and it's a free square for you. So you only need to hit 2 of them to win 6 times your money. All right? Running back injuries and rankings for week number 10 of what we're looking at outside of Thursday Night Football, of course. If you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, you can always follow along with the rankings, which might be updated by the time that you're listening. In the description, as a part of the cheat sheet, if you're watching the video, they're up on the screen right now. But let's start with the injuries. Brian Robinson is questionable to play for Washington against Pittsburgh with his hamstring injury. I would expect him to be a go this week in the running back rankings and for the Washington Commanders. It's a pretty tough spot for him anyway, so I don't have him very high because I don't expect a full workload anyway. I have number 26 in the running back rankings right now. Austin Eckler comes in at number 31. Jeremy McNichols is way down in there because you have to hedge against, in his first game back, it's probably not going to be a full workload. At least that's what we saw before he missed last week's game. Earlier on in the season, he was getting his 14, 15, 16 carries and really dominating all of the goal line work. Now, he was still getting a ton of goal line work in the games where he was injured, but he was barely touching the ball between the 20s. That was going between Eckler and McNichols in those spots. Plus, you still have to factor in that Jaden McDaniels is probably going to have a 30% share of the rushes in this offense and steal touchdowns around him. If he was fully healthy, even in a bad matchup, I would elevate Brian Robinson, but unless he gets in a full practice by Friday, I just can't in good conscience pump him up, even in a week with so many injuries and so many bye weeks coming back. So that's where I stand on Brian Robinson in the Washington backfield right now. Jamal Williams is questionable for the Saints with a groin injury. I wouldn't worry too much about him. The guy that you want is Alvin Kamara as he continues to pile up big numbers. He is number 2 in the running back rankings this week. Just wouldn't play Jamal Williams. Kendry Miller is on injured reserve again. He's probably done for the season with another injury. Dude just cannot stay healthy. Jonathan Brooks in the Munich game, so you're going to have to wake up early, especially you on the West Coast, in order to figure this one out, is leaning in for this game. They had a chance to activate him or else he'd be done for the year. They've done that. They've talked about playing him this week. It's not official that he's going to be in, so I guess we'll see if he makes the trip to Munich. If he does, I'm guessing he's going to play in this game. So I did put him in the running back rankings for the week. Another note about the Panthers, which I found was really, really odd. Chuba Hubbard with Brooks active, I have ranked at number 29 in the running back rankings this week. And I'm thinking about bumping him up a little bit because on Thursday morning, he signed a 4-year contract with $15 million of guaranteed money with the Panthers. I don't know why they re-signed Hubbard and then just after spending a second-round pick on Brooks, unless they think Brooks is not good or he's so hurt he might never be good, but Hubbard's a fine player, and he's been a great fantasy asset so far this season. Bryce Young is starting for the Panthers, by the way. It just seems really strange in the situation where maybe now that they've signed him, they do want to lean on him a little bit more. I could play Hubbard all the way up into this Rashad White, Najee Harris, Rico Dowdle range, and maybe that's where I end up falling. I'll update the rankings every single day. You probably don't need to make that decision for Thursday Night Football. You know who you're going to play from that game. That's pretty clear, especially at the running back position. You play Chase and Henry over Chuba Hubbard. Not a problem there. So on the Friday report, when I do the full breakdown on Saturday, once we have the finalized injury reports, maybe I'll get a better sense of this and maybe we'll try to go into some coach speak. But right now I have Hubbard at number 29 in the rankings. Where do I have Brooks? At number 34. If he's active, I don't see why they wouldn't be giving him the ball. There's a reason they went out and drafted him. The more pressure they can alleviate and take off the shoulders of Bryce Young, the better it would be for Bryce Young and the Panthers offense. But I really don't like the Panthers in this game at all. Christian McCaffrey and his Achilles is leaning in for the first time all season. So all you good people who had the first overall pick in drafts, you got to fire him up. They say he's not experiencing pain. I don't know what the workload is going to look like. I ranked him at number 11 in the running back rankings. Feels like kind of a cop-out, kind of a cowardly ranking. I do worry that he re-aggravates the injury and hurts himself. There's always that downside. Jordan Mason is going to be, he's practicing in full as well with his shoulder injury, so he will be back. Do not drop Jordan Mason for the love of God, because he will vault himself back up inside the top 10 of running backs should anything happen to McCaffrey. It's a very nice matchup against Tampa Bay on the road. I can envision a scenario where McCaffrey goes back to having 95% of the snaps and touches out of this backfield, and they just ride him into the ground. Or it's his first week week back from not playing since last season, and they ease him back in with like a 50-50 split and use him in certain situations, passing downs, and maybe he doesn't handle the majority of the carries between the tackles, and that goes to Mason. So it's a bit of a hedge and a bit of a cop-out on my spot. Look, if you've been waiting all year for Christian McCaffrey, chances are you don't have two better running backs anyway, so you're going to play, and that's why I still ranked him as a running back 1. And if you told me he ended the week with 40 fantasy points and was by far the best running back, sure, that makes an awful lot of sense if he was fully healthy. But I don't know exactly where he's at, so I'm taking it easy with McCaffrey. If we see it with him this week, then he's probably going to be the number 1 ranked running back going forward. As mentioned, Jordan Mason is in with his shoulder injury, and Tyjae Spears is back at limited practice for the Tennessee Titans. And this is what he did last week before he ended up not playing a week ago against the Patriots. So there was also coach speak from Brian Callahan that they want to ease up the workload of Tony Pollard as well, because he is also dealing with a foot injury right now. I have him number 19 in the running back rankings, and that is assuming that Tyjae Spears comes back, because he's going to handle a ton of the workload. And if this is Spears' first game back, maybe they run him out there at not 100%. I still don't know whether or not Rudolph or Levis is playing quarterback. None of us know that. I'm assuming it's Rudolph for the moment, but if Levis is, all of a sudden is under center against the Chargers, then all of a sudden this is a different story. Spears I have down at number 47 in the running back rankings for the week. Pollard is a good play, not a great play. Like, he's another one that could be in that Chuba Hubbard zone. Basically, all of the rankings I have from Pollard down. Maybe, you know what, I'll probably end up putting Hunt and Montgomery over Pollard now that I think about it. This is why I can update the rankings at any time. Find those down in the show notes right now. So I'll move Pollard down to number 21. So it'd be like Hunt, Najee, White, Stevenson, Rico, even with Cooper Rush playing quarterback, Brian Robinson, Javonte Williams, ETN, Chuba Hubbard, Jalen Warren, Austin Eckler, Bucky Irving, Tank Bigsby, like that range of guy. They're very interchangeable. Yes, the top end is a little bit better. Like, can you really make a compelling case for Pollard over Javonte Williams? I think that I can, assuming that he is healthy enough to receive between 15 and 20 carries in this game, as long as they're not getting blown out by the Chargers, albeit against a really good defense in a game where they're over a touchdown underdog. But I just don't know what's going on with Javonte Williams. They're 8-point underdogs against the Chiefs. The Chiefs have a better run defense than the Chargers do, at least, statistically at the moment. They're actually probably pretty similar, but if they're playing from behind the entire game, how many touches is Javonte Williams going to see on the ground? Not many, and at least what we've seen from the Tennessee offense so far, not that he scores a ton of touchdowns because they never get near the goal line, but at least Pollard gets those touches, or they throw to like Wiley, the tight end, or whatever the hell that they're doing when they get in close. But at least on the ground, it is Pollard, not Spears, touching the ball. With the Broncos, it could legit be anyone. Bo Nix is rushing it in. Jaleel McLaughlin just steals goal line touches away from Javonte Williams, hence why he has so few touchdowns so far this season. Of the Denver running backs, he is the best fantasy option. He's probably the best of those players, but he really is capped with the ceiling for how many points he can score because they utilize so many different players on the ground, especially when it comes to inside the 10-yard line. If you see yourself in a lot of the guests on the Pat Mayo Experience, it probably means you're not getting enough nutrients in your diet. There's a solution to this problem, and that solution is AG1. I hammer down a bottle of AG1 every morning when I wake up, and I do not lack energy. You can hear that in my voice. I'm always having energy. So if you need to get some in your life, or there's someone in your life that you need to get some for, right now, AG1 is running a special Black Friday offer for all of November. AG1 is a daily health drink packed with nutrients to help you alleviate bloating, support sustained energy, and the whole body health. Here's the key to AG1, because some people don't necessarily love the taste of ground up greens. The move is to cut it with orange juice. That's what I do. There's many different ways that you can make your own special recipe for it. You can put it in a smoothie. You can make it with cold water, but I just put a little bit of orange juice, then put in water for the other half. Boom, I put in my scoop of AG1, shake it up, energy all day long. And you can have that too with AG1. So this holiday season, try AG1 for yourself, or even gift it to someone special. It's the perfect time to focus on supporting your body with an easy and surprisingly delicious daily health drink. And that's why I'm so excited to be partnering with them. Every week of November, AG1 will be running a special Black Friday offer for a free gift with your subscription, in addition to a welcome kit with vitamin D3 and K2. So make sure to check out drinkag1.com/mayo to see what gift you can get this week. That's drinkag1.com/mayo to start your holiday season off on a healthier note. Well, supplies last. Wide receiver rankings and injury report. Jamar Chase, as mentioned, is the number one wide receiver. Don't let me down, Jamar. I got the money on you on underdog. Code Mayo, again, at underdog if you want to get in on the hires for Jamar Chase. But as pointed out, 49.5 yards per game in the 4 games without T. Higgins, who is not expected to play again. But it's not like you're going to sit Jamar Chase. And you're not going to sit any of these guys inside the top 10. Although you could make a case, potentially, that I have Nico Collins at number 6. So this is based on one of two things, because he could be removed from the rankings, because we still don't know if he's going to play this week, although it seems like he's past his hamstring protocol, but we'll see how quickly they run him back out there against the Lions this week. It's an indoor game. It's against the Lions defense, which is quite good, but you'd expect them to be playing from behind, and the Texans offense has been putrid, especially on third down without Nico Collins. So if he's past the hamstring problems and he's deemed healthy, then you gotta play him. He was leading the league in receiving yards before he got hurt. There could be a slight downtick from him, but if I have Nico Collins sitting on my bench and he's active for this game, I'm getting him into my starting lineup. That's why he's ranked at number 6 in the rankings. Now, should he end up being out for this game, and it is the Sunday Night Football game, so hopefully we do know this heading into Sunday, because we have the Munich game super early, then 2 slates of games, and there might not be anyone else to go pick up. Like, do you really want to be running John Mechie or Xavier Hutchinson or Robert Woods as a fill-in in your lineup? Hell, you're probably better off playing Tim Patrick and picking him up if Nico Collins is the guy that you're waiting on. But if we have indication that he's going to play, you hold out for him and you play him in your lineups this week. Tank Dell, I did move pretty far down the rankings to number 30. He just really didn't excel all that much anyway since Collins and Steph Diggs have been down as the number 1. As a number 2, he's probably better slotted for that. But again, it's the Detroit defense. It's a tougher matchup. And if Collins is back and at full health, that's where I would be wanting to invest my Texan shares. Obviously, he's still a wide receiver 3. You're probably playing Tank Dell if you have him with all of the injuries to receiver, with all of the bye weeks currently happening. He's going to crack your starting roster, be it as a wide receiver 3 or a flex, more than likely, unless you got one of them good teams. We're not all in the business of having the real good teams right now after all of the injury decimation of 2024 at the wide receiver position. But right now with Tank Dell, he has the upside. We just haven't seen it materialize as of yet. So you can only rank him so highly when you know that he's the clear number 3 option on this Texans offense. And I put Joe Mixon at number 1 or 2 when Collins is back, because he's going to get his 20 touches, probably more in this game. And they love running on first down. It's really ridiculous how often they run on first down. I'm pretty sure the other team knows what you're doing on first down. The Texans, you're running the ball between the tackles with Joe Mixon every single time. Even if you're down in games, you're trying to milk the clock on yourself, just keep giving it to Mixon. The only time they didn't do it was in the second half against the Jets 10 days ago, which was really weird because Mixon got to 100 yards in the first half and was gashing them on the ground. Just very strange offensive play calling from the Texans. And the one thing that really benefits Collins over Dell in this game is how bad the offensive line for the Texans has been, especially over the past few weeks since Collins has been out. And that's where it's really shown itself in this Texans offense, because last year we pretend like the Texans offensive line was good. It wasn't very good. It's not as bad as it currently is constituted at the moment, where Stroud has absolutely no time. But Stroud is holding onto the ball so long, thus causing more problems. He's holding onto the ball at one of the highest rates in the league right now. And is that because, and that's why he's taking a ton of sacks and getting a ton of pressure. The line is holding up a little bit, but because receivers aren't getting open for him, he needs to hold on to the ball, or he's simply just taking off in those games. So with Collins back, he has been their skeleton key to third down. Stroud knows where he's going to be, and he knows that Collins is going to be open at the spot that he says he's going to be at, and just chucks it in that direction, and Collins comes down with the ball. That was their entire offense last year. That was their entire offense on third down at the beginning of this year, and I would expect that to come back into the same situation on Sunday Night Football if Nico Collins is back. So that's where I'm at in that offense right now. With the Saints, Chris Olave is not going to play with his concussion. He might go on injured reserve. He might not play the rest of the season, although he says that he wants to, so maybe he'll be back next week. week. Who knows? But he's probably not going to be playing this week. I don't know if you really want to start anyone from the Saints against the Falcons. The Falcons do have a very good pass defense. It's the strong point of their defense. So you have Tipton and Cedric Wilson. Beyond the tight ends, Juwan Johnson and Foster Moreau. Obviously, Kamara out of the backfield is going to catch a ton of passes. We know that. That's why he's number 2 in the running back rankings. But where do I go down to find the first of these losers? Yeah, Cedric Wilson, 55 in the wide receiver rankings. Tipton's going to be at number 65. Like, Derek Carr looks so bad last week, and maybe he looks a little bit better this time at home against the Falcons and with a week removed from that oblique injury and going through games, but they're going to be running with Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill might lead between Hill and Kamara, there's a chance that the tight ends and receivers don't have a summation of targets that equal those two guys. So I just don't see any upside. Like, if you want to take a flyer, or Cedric Wilson's over-under prop this week is like 17.5, then maybe, he could go 3 for 30 in this game. Or if he's $3,000 on DraftKings, you can go plug him in to save all the money and hope that you get lucky. I just see that nothing really points to any of these guys being good for the Saints this week. Keon Coleman is out for the Bills this week, and he could miss multiple weeks with this wrist injury. So I've really pumped up, where are we at here? Khalil Shakir to number 13 in the wide receiver rankings. That's one spot behind Puka Nacua, one spot ahead of Deebo Samuel. Additionally, if you go up to number 11, you will see that I do have Drake London at 11. He is dealing with a hip pointer. If you saw the picture of his bruising on his hip, it is raw, man. It is brutal looking, but it looks like he's going to give it a go against the Saints, whose pass defense was already decimated with injury because Lattimore wasn't playing, and the next 2 corners were also not playing in the games, but now Lattimore's not even there to help out. So if London goes, I'd play him. If he doesn't go, I would elevate Darnell Mooney from 19 to around number 12, and I would pump up Ray McLeod from, where do I have Uncle Ray right now? Ray, where are you at? Number 53 in the wide receiver rankings. He would jump up into this area with Quentin Johnson, Demario Douglas, Courtland Sutton, Roma Dunze, Ricky Bullets. That's the range where I want him to be. And with Keon Coleman, additionally, too, I bumped up Amari Cooper, who is still questionable to play in this game, to number 36 in the wide receiver ranks. So the lowest end wide receiver 3 right now, that's a mix of he is dealing with injury, so we don't know if right now he's going to play or not. Plus, we don't know how integrated he is into this Bills offense because he was dealing with that injury. In week 1, when he got the touchdown, he only had 4 targets in that game. He played like the 4th amount of snaps of any receiver on the Bills, and then he didn't play. You'd expect him to play more with Keon Coleman being out. That's not necessarily going to be the case. You're going to get some Mac Hollins in your life. If Curtis Samuel is back and active for this game, you're going to get some Curtis Samuel as well. Shakir is really the only one we can point to who we know is going on to be on the field and be the primary pass catcher from Josh Allen. After that, I would take my chances on Amari if he's active, but I wouldn't be holding out hope that he's going to go off like 8 for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. You're probably looking at, like, best case scenario, like 6 for 75 and a touchdown, which would make him outperform this. But if I'm saying that's probably best case scenario against the Colts based on the volume and opportunity he's going to have and the amount of routes that he runs, then I can't really rank him any higher than this, even with Keon Coleman out. Maybe I'm dead wrong. He plays 100% of the snaps as an alpha wide receiver 1. I just don't see that happening. Hence, in my rankings, he's not ranked like that's going to be the case. Juju is going to be probably out with a hamstring injury against the Broncos. We'll see who Pat Surtain ends up going to, but we did see a big boost for DeAndre Hopkins on Monday Night Football. I wouldn't expect to see that every single week, but it's very clear that he's gaining that opportunity and he is earning more trust, especially in tight areas, being on the 2-yard line or on 3rd down for Patrick Mahomes. He's the most sure-handed of any of these Chiefs receivers right now. He is number 18 in the wide receiver rankings. I had to bump Worthy down. It's not like I just got rid of Worthy in the rankings. He did make me very, very mad and cost us our 10-time money hit on Monday Night Football. I mean, he didn't really cost us. It wasn't even close. He finished in the negatives for fantasy points. It felt like that 7.5 fantasy points was stealing. I got trapped right into it as he finished with minus 0.1 points with 2 carries for negative 10 yards. Although he should have had all of the points on the first drive of the game, and it just did not work out to be the case whatsoever. So I'm at number 45 in the wide receiver rankings. That's sandwiched between 2 Thursday night guys, Yoshavass and Rashad Bateman. You also have a a banged up Sterling Shepard who may or may not play against the Niners for the Bucs on a short week at number 47. Demarcus Robinson and Mike Williams coming right after him. Mike Williams now on the Steelers, by the way. I expect him to play. Not a certainty, but if he is in, that's who I would want to be playing as a potential second option behind George Pickens, who I have ranked at wide receiver number 10 for the week coming in. Williams, I think that he will be out there, and he kind of fits exactly what Russell Wilson likes to do. He likes to throw jump balls down the field, and that is the Mike Williams MO. He's not going to burn you. He is not going to run crisp routes or be in the right place at all times, but if you throw him a jump ball, he has the verticality and the good hands and the body contortion to be able to go up and get a ton of those 50-50 balls. We saw that. That's basically his entire career with the Chargers. So if Russell Wilson can take advantage of that, I'd want to be there as a very low-end flex. Listen, don't go out of your way to pump Mike Williams into your lineup if he is starting against Washington, but it's very unlikely that Lattimore ends up on Mike Williams, so he might actually have free reign. If he ends up on St. Juice, you probably do want to play Mike Williams, because St. Juice is god-awful, and they'll probably end up mixing it around to try to get Pickens off of Lattimore in case he tries to shadow and follow him across the field, or they'll come up with different formations. But you can usually, when you see these new receivers go to new teams, they obviously don't know the entire playbook, but one thing that you can get from them is specific packages for big plays and valuable plays down the field, be it on third down or in the red zone or deep downfield in terms of those jump balls, which are kind of the three things that Mike Williams does well anyway. He's not going to be the 9 for 74 guy running 4-yard slants over the middle. That ain't happening for him. Pickens can do that. Kelvin Austin can do that for the Steelers. They can throw to Jalen Warren or Najee out of the backfield. They still have Freiermuth there. So a big play threat for scoring opportunities is why Mike Williams is currently ranked at number 48 right now. And in terms of Demarcus Robinson, I mean, maybe I should just rank him at number 1 because he catches 2 touchdowns every single week. Eventually, that has to end for Demarcus Robinson. Puka will likely not get himself ejected from this week's game, so Demarcus Robinson probably will not be drawing as many targets from Matt Stafford in this contest. Interesting part about the Philadelphia Eagles right now. A.J. Brown, we weren't sure whether or not he was going to play coming into the week, but now it looks like he is going to play against the Cowboys. So I bumped him up to number 8 in the wide receiver rankings. Now, it is a knee injury. Normally, he would be higher than this, but there is the risk of re-aggravation of that injury right now, so he might not get through the entire game. They might need him for this game. Dallas Goedert going to be back for the Eagles as well, it looks like. It is my guy. Where did I put him right here? Devonta Smith down at number 26, mainly because he's not practicing with a hamstring injury. Coming out of that game, we didn't think that A.J. Brown was going to play, and now all of a sudden Devonta Smith was his awesome two-toe tap touchdown, which is one of the nicest catches of the year, just pops up with a hamstring injury. These guys can't stay healthy. Jalen Hurts is kind of banged up as well. He didn't practice on Wednesday either, although he is expected to play. We'll get more information about Smith. There is a chance that both he and Brown miss this game. There's a chance that just he misses this game. There's a chance that Brown misses this game. And there's a chance that both of them end up playing in this game. So until we get more information, I don't want, especially with a soft tissue injury like a hamstring, the risk of re-aggravation going down in game is so much higher than it is for almost any other injury to begin with. And if A.J. Brown is going to be back here against the Cowboys, I just don't expect to see a ton from Devonta Smith. And on the other side of the ball, it seems like Bland and Micah Parsons are going to be back for the Cowboys. Their defense should be a little bit improved here. I would just anticipate a lot of running with Barkley in this game, or forcing it into Goddard, who is now going to be healthy, it would seem. So I would just pump the brakes a little bit on Devonta Smith. And frankly, so far this year, he's only really been good when teams have gone out of their way to take out A.J. Brown, or if A.J. Brown has been out. So I don't love him this week, especially with the injury coming in. Debo and Juwan Jennings are both expected to be active against the Bucs for the 49ers coming off of bye week, and I like both of them a lot. I have Debo Samuel Senor at number 14 in the rankings. He's still dealing with myriad injuries, so I mean, he leaves every game for like 20 plays anyway, but he's still a great play at the moment. And where did I put Juwan Jennings? Number 28 in the rankings, because I have Ricky Bullets at number 39 in the rankings. This is a very bad pass defense for the Buccaneers. This is a nice showcase spot. And if you do want to alleviate a little bit of the pressure on McCaffrey, that maybe getting more of your receivers involved, especially now that they all seem to be getting closer to full health, would be the move for me. I would expect a lot of points in this game from the San Francisco side of the ball, so none of them are bad plays. None of them are great plays, because it's always hard to peg down where the points are going to be scored for the 49ers. But Debo could be the number 5 number 3 wide receiver of the week, he'd be the number 50, depending on where the touchdowns and the touches go in that game. But with Brandon Ayuk out for the rest of the season, you'd have to think that leaning on Kittle and leaning on Debo and leaning on McCaffrey are where you want to go, thus opening up Juwan Jennings, who's been great in absence of Brandon Ayuk, to just kind of roam free near the end zones. He might end up catching all the touchdowns, which distributes the wealth of fantasy points. I mean, they kind of are Kyle Shanahan, kind of the Karl Marx of play callers in the NFL right now. He wants to make sure everyone gets their touches and everyone gets their fantasy points. I'd prefer like 2 guys get all the targets and all the fantasy points. I'm sure you would too. As a fantasy owner, that's just not the case right now. Sterling Shepard and Jalen McMillan are both questionable with hamstring injuries for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in that same game. I do believe I have, Sterling Shepard at number 47 in the rankings right now. I don't know if I went higher than that on anyone. No, I didn't. So I don't know if I have McMillan in or not. Not that you really want to play him. No, I don't, because I have Raheem Jarrett in at number 57, Trey Palmer at number 50. We might be able to see McMillan in this game, but if he missed last week, I'm not going to put him in the rankings this week as a guy you barely want to play anyway. Mike Evans probably expected back next week, thus rendering most of these guys inert. Just start Cade Otton, Rashad White. That's probably all you want to do. Maybe Baker, who did not practice on Wednesday with a toe injury either, but he is still expected to play on Sunday. CeeDee Lamb is questionable. He's going to play, it looks like. Amari Cooper, as mentioned before, questionable. I have him in the rankings at number 36. Gabe Davis is questionable. Adam Thielen is questionable for the Munich game. He's probably not going to play here either. CeeDee Lamb, I do still have ranked pretty highly. If you scroll up in the wide receiver rankings, I have CeeDee Lamb at number 15 because it's an AC joint in his shoulder, and now Cooper Rush is throwing him the ball, and he's the only guy on the Cowboys who can do basically anything besides Jake Ferguson through the air. Although the Rico Dowdle hires on underdog for receiving game work cashed again on Sunday. It was my biggest play and my biggest stance on Sunday, and it really paid off. I would probably go back to that well once again this week once his number is released. If it's like 23.5, 19.5, higher on Rico Dowdle with Cooper Rush playing quarterback. But we had the chance of the re-aggravation of the injury. He still might not play. There's always that on the table as well. So just be wary of CeeDee Lamb this week. You're not going to sit him if he's active. You know that. But just in terms of overall ranking, there are players with higher upsides this week without the downside that comes along with the re-aggravation of his shoulder. Tight end is pretty easy, honestly, this week. You know the guys that you're going to play, and you know the guys that you probably have to pick up and stream. If you've been streaming Calcaterra, then you don't have to do that anymore because Dallas Goedert expects to be back. I have Dallas Goedert in the rankings at number 14. Still a bit wonky with the hamstring injury, but if he continues to practice in full on Friday, he doesn't go back to a limited practice, I'll probably bump him up in the rankings. Like at this point of the week, I would start Mark Andrews over him if that was my decision. If not, with Isaiah likely out for Thursday Night Football. Other than that, I would start Mike Gesicki on Thursday night over him as well. But I could see a scenario where later on in the week, I bump Goddard up to number 8, where Hunter Henry is right now, or Jake Ferguson. With Drake May, by the way, Hunter Henry has been very, very good and is still available in over 50% of leagues. Gesicki is the preferred play this week, but if you do need a tight end for the rest of the season, if you're just running out losers, you're the guy that was playing my guy Kroll at tight end, or you picked up Will Disley for that week, and now that Hayden Hurst is back, you can't play him anymore, or you tried to stream Noah Fant, but then he got hurt, and then he goes on bye week. Hunter Henry is not going to ever be the number 1 tight end. I mean, maybe in a certain week he catches 3 touchdowns. Who knows? But he's just very stable, especially for half point and full point PPR purposes. He's just going to put up a lot of like 6 for 50s, and you hope he scores a touchdown because Drake May and him have the eyes for each other. He's a safe option for Drake May, and that's been coming through so far in the starts that May has made so far this season. So in terms of overall rankings, it's the guys you got to play: Kittle, Kelsey, Otton, McBride. Those are the big 4 this week, in my opinion, with the bye weeks happening right now. Those guys are the absolute must starts. Then you can kind of mix and match the next few, but Ingram, Gesicki, Pitts, Henry, Ferguson, Andrews, Laporta, Kincaid, Taysom Hill, and Goddard would be the next tier. And they're all pretty interchangeable depending on their matchup, their health, and how much you actually value them. And then you're into like, Who knows? Hawkinson, we don't know. I mean, he ran double the routes of Johnny Munt and Oliver on Sunday Night Football for the Vikings, but he wasn't really out there all that much. Maybe it's the first week back, or maybe this offense is just different from when he left it. It might take him a few weeks to get ramped back up to full game speed and to mesh with Sam Darnold right now. It's a good matchup against Jacksonville. I could see shooting for upside if you play prop ladders or touchdown props, but in your fantasy lineup where you do need some stability, I mean, he's like a 1 point waiting to happen. He could be a 20 points waiting to happen, but it's far more likely he scores 1 than 20, whereas someone with the stability of a Jake Ferguson or Hunter Henry or hell, even Jonnu this week, who's probably going to have like 6 for 39 and maybe a touchdown. Like, if it's a standard league, I would probably like Hawkinson a little bit more than some of those guys, but since these are half-point PPR rankings, I do think there are better players that you can stream through your lineups right now. Like, even if you really wanted to go to Zach Ertz, who I have at number 18, or Cole Kmet, who I do have a little bit lower, because since the return of Keenan Allen, he really hasn't done much in the Bears offense, and frankly, the Bears offense hasn't done much since the return of Keenan Allen. But it's been worse matchups for them. They haven't played like the 5 worst teams in the league in a row like they did earlier on in the season. Although they get the Patriots this week, maybe that works it out. So Hawkinson, you're still thinking that he's the old TJ Hawkinson and he captures that back. That's the reason to play him. But if you did want to pass on that because you don't believe, you can drop him down. You can take my rankings, just drop him down and create your own personal rankings from it and play some of these other guys ahead of him at the moment. Quarterback injuries to look for. Baker is banged up, but he's probably going to play. Caleb Williams was taken off the injury report with that ankle. Patrick Mahomes is dealing with a sore ankle as well. They're all going to play. Dak Prescott has been placed on injured reserve, however, and Cooper Rush will be starting for at least, well, I mean, unless they decide to play Trey Lance, that Cooper Rush is going to be starting for 4 games. Don't expect to see Trey Lance, or maybe they go sign someone off the street and replace Cooper Rush with him. Interesting with Cooper Rush, I haven't seen his rushing props come out as of yet. People in their mind, because he did have a rush for 4 yards last week in a spot coming in replacement for Dak Prescott, that he doesn't actually run all that much, that if you see like a 3.5 or a 4.5 in terms of a rushing total, he might beat it with one lucky run if no one is around him. But over the course of his career, he has been under that number 75% of the time. So if it is 4.5, or God forbid, if it's anything higher than that, lower is where you should be looking at for him. He's actually not a bad hand. He's just not very good. You don't want to be running out Cooper Rush in anything besides like a 2-quarterback super flex league. That's 14 teams at this point. You pick them up in those sorts of leagues, in case I'm wrong, because quarterbacks are oh so valuable, but you probably do have better options than Cooper Rush this week. Will Levis, again, is questionable with the shoulder injury. We'll see the reports on him throughout the course of the week. But the rankings, Lamar, Daniels, Allen, Hurts is banged up. We don't know exactly what the injury is yet, but keep an eye on him. If it is a knee or a hamstring or an ankle, we did see him be limited during the second half of the season last year, and it did affect his rushing numbers a lot. If Jalen Hurts doesn't have his rushing numbers, then you need to drop him down the quarterback rankings. But it could just be a weird day off as well, where he's just tired and just wanted to chill out. Like Lamar didn't practice on Monday or Tuesday anyway, because they're like, yeah, we don't need Lamar to practice. Just get him healthy, make sure he's rested, and get him out there so he's going to be fine. They might be doing the same thing with Jalen Hurts for the moment, but that's a wait and see type thing, and not a decision that you need to make right now. Unless you really wanted to play Joe Burrow, who I have number 5 over him, although I can't envision many scenarios on teams where you have both Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts. Although I say that, but I play in a keeper league where I have Lamar and Jaden Daniels, and I haven't played Jaden Daniels all season, which is crazy to think, considering he should be started every single week, but Lamar's the best quarterback in fantasy. Why would you ever sit Lamar in any sort of circumstance where he wasn't hurt, regardless of matchup? Hence why he is number 1 here. After that, Purdy, Tua, Stafford, Daniel Jones, and Cousins. It gets a bit dicey once you get outside the top 5. Like if you wanted to tell me Drake May was the number 6 quarterback this week, I could believe you, man. He's good. I don't know how good of a real-life quarterback he's going to be, but he is a fantasy superstar. This defense sucks, so he's always going to be passing. He pulls the ball down and runs the moment he sees daylight. He might get hurt. He might throw a ton of picks, but I don't care about that. More picks, the better. Just to throw 3 picks, get yourself behind by 21 points. The defense softens up that you can throw more touchdowns against them. The touchdowns outweigh the interceptions, and those rushing yards are oh so valuable. That's kind of the reason with Caleb Williams behind him at number 14 is just, I don't think he's going to have to run all that much in this game. They might be able to beat up on the Patriots. The Patriots generate like 0 pressure right now, which has been really good for Caleb Williams in the games where he's been very high end in terms of a fantasy quarterback, but May just does more. floor, fantasy-wise, than he does right now because of his erratic play, and weirdly, his dearth of options to pass to puts the onus on him, whereas Caleb Williams has good options to pass to. Now, that might end up making him have more passing yards in this game, but in terms of rushing yards, I mean, Drake May almost threw for 200 and rushed for 100 a week ago and didn't even have a rushing touchdown, still scored a bunch of fantasy points. So that's where I would be leaning right now. Stroud, I have at 12. That feels like on name value only because I don't really trust him. If Nico Collins is ruled out against Detroit, Stroud is going down in the quarterback rankings. I can tell you that much right now. He'd probably be outside the top 20. Like, I'd probably put him behind Bo Nix against the Chiefs. I'd put him at number 21 in the rankings. Other than that, you can mix and match with Baker, who's banged up, Mahomes, who's banged up. Goff against Houston isn't a great situation. I mean, Goff is probably going to be pretty good in the game, but even in the games where Goff is good and they win by 1 million points, he barely scores any fantasy points. So not a great fantasy, much better real life quarterback than fantasy quarterback. We see this pop up from time to time as well. So just keep that in mind if you're streaming some guys through your lineup this week. The Drake May does appear to be the best stream that you can put in besides Daniel Jones against Carolina, who I have at number 9. Fire up Tyrone Tracy, fire up Malik Neighbors. Wendell is like fringy because Slayton may or may not play, but even if you're desperate in some of those leagues, in the Munich game, like if you're in a 16-team league, Jalen Hyatt, if he steps in to play for Darius Slayton, if Slayton misses the game with a concussion, like, is not a terrible play. Basically, anyone against the Panthers, unless you're like the New Orleans receivers, is a pretty good play. Finally, the defenses for the week. I got the Chargers, Giants, Eagles, Bears, Vikings. Those are the top 5. Then we're into the Chiefs, Lions, Commanders, Falcons, Bills, 49ers, and Jets. I went over the top streaming defenses in the league for the fantasy playoffs if you are looking for them. I just mentioned some good streamers this week if you wanted to go pick them up. But it is the Indianapolis Colts. I think are the best fantasy defense for the fantasy playoffs. I've actually picked them up in leagues where it's very clear that I'm going to be going to the playoffs. They're the one team who is available. Like, the Chargers are the best defense for the fantasy playoffs, but they're also like 95% out. I don't really know what good that's telling you. You know, if you play in those 5% of leagues, which are clearly full of absolute morons, maybe you should go pick up the Chargers. I think if you're playing in that league, you're probably doing pretty good anyway and probably already own the Chargers defense, but the Colts are less than 10% owned right now, and they'll be dropped even more because they're playing Buffalo this week, and they just have soft matchups, 15, 16, and 17. That is all in the Tuesday pickup show if you were looking for it in the short video that I released on X, and maybe, you know what, I will put those in the newsletter as well, the top 5 streamable fantasy defenses for the playoffs that you can pick up and stash if you want to try to mix and match and get ahead of the game right now, and you have the bench space. I'll put that below the defenses in the rankings cheat sheet down in the description. I'll put that right below the week 10 defenses right now if you want to get prepared and ahead of the game. You might not need to go pick them up right now, but at least put them on the watch list so you do not forget which teams are looking good for the playoffs if you don't have one of the elite defenses with good matchups to begin with. All right, that'll do it for me. Code Mayo at Underdog right now, the Lamar free pick, and you get that deposit bonus of up to $1,000. Again, Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, and Lamar Jackson hires. You can find those in the newsletter as well, or just rewind to the time codes and go find that at the beginning about that breakdown. And the injuries and rankings will update every morning once we get some more information. So I will be back on Friday with the DraftKings picks, but I will be back on Saturday as well with a full injury recap, a rankings update, all of the props, all the underdog plays, the DraftKings ownership, and all the information that you need going into the weekend to make the most informed decision. Are they going to be the most correct decision? No, they never are, because no one hits 100% and no one hits 1,000% here. I mean, even 100% would be nice, but we're not going to do that either. We get like 65%, we're well ahead of the game. But at least I will provide you with the info that you need to make the critical decisions for yourself with the most information. All right, so tune in Saturday to that and sub to the newsletter, because it also comes out Saturday evening in full cheat sheet form as well. Smash the like, sub to the channel while you are here, and we'll see you next time.
Mayo experience! Experience!